don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. I learned this the hard way with my first company. So I created NetSuite, the world's #1 cloud business system. NetSuite gives you the visibility and control you need to make smart decisions and grow with confidence. That's why companies who use NetSuite grow 3 times faster than the S&P 500.
Schedule your free product tour right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Leaders Show. We're live every Wednesday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, talking key issues and news at the intersection of business and technology, with a special focus on automation, AI, and digital transformation in hopes of making you a better digital leader. Today, we're discussing the impact of AI on creative industries with NYU Stern professor Anat Lechner, plus headlines for digital leaders. Thanks to our sponsor, Oracle NetSuite, a unified cloud business management solution that helps organizations operate more effectively by automating core processes and providing real-time visibility into operational and financial performance. ERPA AI members and followers can receive special pricing and resources at erpaai.com/NetSuite. I'm Dan Goodstein. I head up ERPA AI as well as the Digital Enterprise Institute. We're a professional association, media, and peer-to-peer research network providing education, networking, and advice to over 130,000 members worldwide, all around automation, enterprise AI, and digital transformation. My co-host today is Carlos Alvarenga. He's a researcher, author, coach, serves as a chair of our new Technology Innovation Board. He was previously Senior Research Fellow at Robert H. Smith School of Business, University of Maryland, Executive Director of World 50, and held leadership roles at EY and Accenture. You know, Carlos, as you do more and more and more, we're not going to have time for your intro.
It's always good to be back. You just shut it down. Just say writer. That's good enough for me, Dan.
Writer. You've always just wanted to be a writer. All those fancy titles and experience. At the end of the day, you've always just wanted to be a writer.
That's it. I think everybody has that one thing they want to do, and that's probably it for me, Dan. Good to be back. Great to be back on the show again. Lots to talk about today, and it's wonderful to have Anat Lechner on the show. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time.
Yeah, well, you have a lot of insight as a writer, you have a lot of insight on this topic as well. I mean, you and I have talked about, I think, I don't want to say we were the first, but we talked really early on about the effects on content, misinformation, creativity, journalism, right? All those things. So yeah, looking forward to that conversation. Lots of headlines this week. I had a few I kind of pulled out that I thought would pique your interest and our audience's interest. One of which is OpenAI striking a deal with the Financial Times, as all these newspapers are kind of in lawsuits with them about stealing their data, according to the suits.
Well, it's a remarkable thing, right? And it's funny that I'm at the University of Maryland today at a conference center where I'm zooming in from, and it is this issue of the people who create content and are donating it, right, to people like to companies like OpenAI. And the book I wrote that published last fall, I maybe at some point it gets read and absorbed into those things. I will get nothing from that, whether it's credit or royalties. And so there's this remarkable question of, if you are producing content that's feeding and training these machines, at what point do you say, I'm done, right? Or I need protection, or the copyright. Copyright wasn't created, that system patent, to protect innovators, to give them a chance to profit from their innovation and creativity and work. And right now, this is just another example of a legal structure that is behind the present, right? And so, yeah, I'm not surprised, and it's only going to get worse. It's funny. I have a friend. I've never seen this before until now. I'm used to people asking Siri questions, right, in their phone, but that person has the ChatGPT. So the go-to is basically asking ChatGPT all kinds of questions. What was this? What was that? To me, this is a milestone event of the first time I saw somebody as that was their Google or their Siri, which tells you just what a remarkable impact that technology has had in such a short time.
Yeah. Well, it also brings up an interesting, and maybe we get into this with our guest today, but does the business model of some of these news organizations change from one of kind of distribution to one of licensing? I mean, this Financial Times deal is I think one of eight or nine lawsuits as a result of at least 8 or 9 lawsuits, if not more, against these guys. This is a deal that came in. The Associated Press recently did a deal with them as well, but there's others. The Daily News, Chicago Tribune, how many others that are suing both OpenAI and also Microsoft for stealing content. I know Google's agreed to pay the Wall Street Journal. It's like $5 or $6 million to help them develop AI related content. So it's an interesting, possible. Maybe this is the thing that these organizations needed, new business model.
What are the thought, right, before we ask Anat to join us? That's this. There's been this talk, there's a concept called the rockstar economy, which is an economy where a few people make all the profits, right? And a lot of other people work for very small amounts. And media was already kind of headed that way, right? The New York Times is doing okay. FT is a premium brand. It's not the FTs and the New York Times, the Wall Street Journals, right, that are not going to be able to figure out a deal. But how many people, the more interesting thing is like, who didn't get a licensing deal from OpenAI? Who did, right? Because you will count probably on one hand the people who will be recognized as source, as content providers to them, but it's millions.
Yeah.
But FT will get a deal, the 99.9%. This is maybe this is a new 1%, Dan, that your content is, that AI will recognize that you're a content creator. The 99% will just be absorbed.
Yeah.
Be recognized. Right?
Well, the other part of the business side of AI is Amazon is reporting record earnings around its cloud business all around AI, right? All being caused by a combination of the cloud business and also some advertising business. But the AWS business is up like 17%, strongest in a year. And this is at a time where, well, maybe a little bit after a time where people started saying, hey, is this cloud business going to continue? Is it lapsing? Is the margin becoming an issue? So and the other thing it points at is that there's still investment happening, right, in technology.
And something like cloud, right? It's like a highway in the sense that it's infrastructure, right? That they'll tell you that, people who work there, and it's the next wave of thing that it enables. That's the determinant of the future, not the thing in of itself, right? So yeah, this is like NVIDIA, right? Riding the wave, and this is going to be a 10-year thing, as I see it. I was talking to an AI person last week, and I said, this is a fundamental rewrite of how things are. Right? At least, again, I see it from an education and content creation standpoint. This is not smoke and mirrors. Any one thing you see may be smoke and mirrors, but the revolution itself is not.
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes you get kind of fooled by the headlines of thinking, I think we even covered, I'm not sure if it was, with you, Carlos, or another show we had where we talked about, a little bit of a slump as far as AI investments. But this report came out from Crunchbase this week that said that there's like $12 billion worth of AI startups that are getting funding, and AI funding is up significantly in the first quarter of 2024. Right. So even though there's not some big, maybe some smaller companies, not the same big headlines that we had last year with the likes of Microsoft and Google, but the investment seems like it's still there. It hasn't dried up.
Right. And this is Crunchbase, right? So we're talking about the startup world. This is not counting what enterprise people are doing, which is a whole nother thing, right? On a different scale as well. So yeah, this is not going away anytime soon.
So let's invite our guest, Carlos. You want to introduce Anat?
Let's go ahead and bring on Anat Lechner, as professor at NYU Stern. And Anat, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while, and it's great to have you. Why don't we begin by giving you a chance to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Yes, thank you for inviting me. This is exciting. I'm a business professor at the Stern School of Business at NYU, and I'm also the founder and CEO of a company called Huedata, which is a color intelligence company providing color intelligence to industries that are design heavy and need a color decision for products and brands, and very often built environments. So this is the combo of what it is.
I want to talk about color, because Huedata is such a remarkable topic, and I talk about this with you. I'm fascinated what the company does. Let's put that aside for a second and talk about your academic work right now, because I know you're teaching a class on AI and change management. So maybe talk us through what are you talking to with your students about when you talk about the change, the managing the change that AI is bringing to the world?
Yeah, every good change management discussion go through a couple of questions. First is this really a change, right? Or is one of these, everything is, same under the sun. So there's a question of kind of determining the extent of the change. I'm of the mind that this revolution is just enormous and is touching all corners of society and transforming it same way general purpose technology usually does. And the second question that any good change management conversation goes through is a question of how much denial versus how much urgency. And here, I'm also of the mind that urgency is the word of the day, because all indications show us that we've already lost to the machine. Gotta, get on with the program, so to speak. And I've seen over the past decade many people who are trying to tell a good story onto why this is not yet the time to adapt, adjust, and perhaps lead aspects of this revolution. So I think that the days of the industrial revolutions are over. I think the days of the intelligence revolution have arrived, and the opportunities are enormous. But one has to come to accept that the world as we know it, I want to say, has ended completely. And that is a pretty big statement with a pretty big energy behind it. In other words, you have to rationalize it, but you also have to be able to accept it. You have to look at the current professions we're in, and you have to understand that a good LLM will just retire them the way they are working today. You have to understand it, you have to accept it, and you have to then ask yourself, so what is life? What does life look like when this reality has fully emerged? We're 5 minutes before quantum, we're 10 minutes before supercomputers. We've already built LLMs that are self-training. Some will say are half conscious. So we've come to a completely new reality to people under the sun. It's completely new. And I don't think that there is coming back from this. I don't think it's going to stop. I don't think it's going to get regulated. I just don't see any of these attempts succeeding.
So
I think
Anat,
it's a train that's left.
so just a question for you, right? Because I do agree with you. As I mentioned before you came on, I think this is a significant revolution. The change management paradigm, it's called a paradigm for a reason, which is a structure which is built usually retroactively, right? So this is how you manage change that you've seen in the past. We don't have change management necessarily for things that we've never seen before. So as you think about change management with respect to AI, do the old change management quote unquote models work here? Or is it forcing you to think through a different thing? Maybe it's the first AI generation of MBAs, right? That are coming out of MBA to that world, with the ones that are graduating this year. And so what are you telling your students about? What does that mean?
My perspective on it's a really nice way you framed this work of change management. But my view on this has been that it's composed actually of, say, three major chunks. There is the agnostic element, specifically on core competence and what it is that you're able to do usually. There is a envisioning component of where you can find a good place for yourself in the future. What is the future for you, given your competencies and given the trends that are emerging? And then there is the close the gap between your present self and your future self. In that sense, change management can be very proactive, very vision driven, very much on trends, and not reactionary, kind of dealing with the reality that's emerged. And now let's just kind of try to minimize damages and adapt quickly. I don't think of change management this way. I think of change management as being something very proactive. And for as long as you're able to wake up 2 minutes before the world, just to be able to either understand what's about to happen or bring it on, then your life on the change continuum is actually quite good. You're proactive and you gain all the competitive points as a result.
I'm thinking what you said that was interesting about a book. If I've got it correct, there were two of them, and the book was, I think it was 1491, and it was the book about the year before Columbus arrived in the new world, right? And there's 1493, which is a year
Exactly.
after he arrived. And I wonder
Exactly.
one day somebody will go back and write, let's pick that it was 2021, right? And that will be the name of the title. Like we think of
That's exactly right.
pivotal year. 2021 will be a book, and it'll some point down the road, I'll describe the world before this thing came along.
Exactly, before ChatGPT.
Well, now let's talk about something you know a lot about, and that is the impact in creative industries. Because I think some people think, because we talk to so many technologists on the show, we don't usually think about worlds like fashion and design, worlds that seem to be kind of, I don't want to say immune, but let's say a little bit more distant than from the AI revolution. But you argue that they're not. So maybe help us understand what's happening in the creative space with respect to AI these days.
Yeah, I think that it's super interesting because if you think on how we thought about the change that AI will bring, we used to think that first we will automate and people will say blue collar employees will go first, and then the white collar employees will go second, and then the creatives will go third or last. And what we find out is actually the creatives are going home first. And it's partially because AI can now, I'm not talking about the hallucination part, although that's interesting as well, but AI can sort through all the data points that are existing and available, have been mined, have been structured or semi-structured or even unstructured, right? And identify the white space, so to speak, which is the art of any creative out there, is to unlock innovation from the white space, right? The space in between knowledge bases. And what we used to think of as intuition, which essentially is just you're turning your kaleidoscope of all the things you know until you find something that has never been permutated that way, the AI is far more capable of doing. So the question on fashion or branding or any other creative or architecture, any other creative domain, is the question of what data exists and how much of that has been mined and how much of this is being structured. Because if there is no data, there can be no AI. And the difference between the so-called creative industries and all other industries is the question of the data. I think that what we've seen in finance, insurance, the legal space now, the medical space or the healthcare space is digitizing the spaces and structuring data over the past couple of decades. In the design space, generally speaking, over the creative industries, we haven't seen as much of that effort happening, but it is now kind of advancing. And as we will advance that, there's not going to be any difference between any one of these industries and the industries mentioned earlier. In the fashion and insurance industries will be exactly the same in the sense that they will be analyzed and understood in the same way, because it's actually just a question of data.
Oh, go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and I'm so intrigued by what you just said, because coming from a software automation background and AI, you're right. So much, or at least what we've seen on our network, has been on back office and finance and procurement and some of those types of functions. Now you're getting into areas which are the differentiators for a lot of companies or even individuals, right? Why one designer is better than another. So how do you see that playing out? Or how do we, if we are a professional in that space, or somebody watching is a professional in that space, what do you do going forward to make sure that can you differentiate in this AI led world?
And just to add on a question to that, and if you're head of IT at Gucci, right? If you're head of IT at LVMH, your job is going to change radically, because it's going to become part of the quote unquote creative side of the business, right? Which again, like you said, wasn't thought of that way before. And that's a bigger revolution than in banking or finance, where IT is part of the business. So maybe help us understand that, and then tell us about, I know that's what Huedata does. Tell us about the origin of Huedata after we.
Okay, so quite a number of things to kind of sort through. Let's start with the data question and say, if you're head of IT at Gucci, give me a call, because you see the issue with what it is that you're needing to do is, I have all the colors, for instance, for Gucci ever since Gucci started to go on fashion shows. So I've already databased all of that. This is, we'll go back to this conversation later for Huedata. And so for me to understand what might be your next colors, is not that complicated, because I can parse through this data of what you've done. I can parse through the cyclicality of colors across the board. I can parse through that in reference to other industries, and I can provide, for one, color forecasting. I can provide predictions, and I can provide rationalized analytics for you to then decide what to inform your R&D team on what's going on in the world and where shall they concentrate. So we can de-risk a lot of this ambiguity, which usually is present and is very costly for design-led industries or design-heavy industries. We can go back to this point. So those positions are changing the way these companies are working, because as we've been saying now for a while, you're first a data company, and then you're a bank. You're a data company, then you're a coffee company. You're a data company, you're then a healthcare company. You're a data company first. And for as long as you understand that, this is where you will concentrate your effort. It starts with digitizing your business if you haven't done so, or if you are not born digital, you need to digitize all your assets, and then you need to structure them. You need to understand the data of your customers, of your offerings, of your ecosystem partners. It all has to be hubbed, ingested, analyzed, and then from there, the match.com between offerings that you have and needs of your end users. This is the general, say, gestalt. And every company, irrespective of which business it's in, is actually needing to operate this way and with that mindset. So the head of IT for Gucci, that's the mindset, and then the head of IT for any company, right? Or the IT head, any company has to operate this way. If you ask yourself, then how does it change the way we work, which is a great question. I'm now writing a chapter on color forecasting, and color forecasting used to be designers coming into a room and exchanging notes about what they believe to be the colors 2 years out based on, shall we call it, educated intuition. So say their expertise that they've gained over many years working with color, which respect, right? But today you can look through all the colors that have been working in industry and all the colors against seasonality or whichever other variable that you want to model this phenomenon against, find the patterns in the data, understand how long colors last, and understand what they usually get paired with, and how is this, happening across all sorts of cities, and from there come up with predictions. Will they necessarily be better than the experts? Perhaps not yet. Will eventually they be better than the experts? Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
For the same reason that we don't invest with people just based on their personal opinion. We invest based on data, right?
So, and I've spent time in those rooms, forecasting fashion, forecasting cosmetics, right? These kinds of things. And there was always this, right, art and science debate. And I think the general thought was that it's, especially in fashion, where we talk about, the white t-shirt that somebody wore to the Oscars, right? And all of a sudden everybody wants that particular shade of white. So there was always, I think it was never 50-50. It was kind of the primacy of art, right? At the end of the day, if it's a tie, art breaks the tie in things like fashion, right? I hear you something very different, that in the future, if it's a tie, the AI breaks the tie.
I think so. I think that, we're so much more readily accepting this in finance or in healthcare. And it's just a curious case. Why? I mean, to be a good diagnostician as a physician, that's art. It's no less art than to come up with the next yellow color for whichever design. And isn't it? And to be able to, to be a financial advisor, that's art. Art sits on top of data.
But isn't it part of the, so I get the data analogy to say, okay, well, if we can inform creative industries based on data, AI makes sense and is, theoretically better. But if you think of the traditional art world where it's about creativity, is AI creative? And I'm back and forth on it, right? I think back to conversations you and I had, Carlos, about NFTs early on, right? And whether these things were real art or not, right?
But here's what go ahead, Anat. I want to make
here's how I think on this. When we come to create something as people, I think that what we create, shall we call it, is something out of something. It's never really something out of nothing, right? That's too godly for us. So let's just be humble enough to acknowledge we're something out of something type creators. And now you ask yourself, so what is the something that you bring to your creative work? What is that something? And if you think about this that way, then it's everything that you've ever been exposed to that you can recall in the moment of creating, right? Everything that got absorbed, that you've seen, that you understood, that you learned, right? That today, when you're sitting to the table to come and create something, you can retrieve, recall, and bring into the creation of that particular endeavor. That's our something. Now, what is the something the machine starts with? Now, shall we call it everything? And if it's not everything today, then it'll become everything at one point, because we are in the process of ingesting everything into the machine. Everything that we've ever created, everything that we've ever thought on, everything that we've ever discovered is being ingested. And the machine take it from there because it can. So then that kaleidoscoping, even if we were just in the business of starting from something and creating something out of something, our kaleidoscope is very limited in terms of what ingredients we pour together or we pull together to come up with something that we call creative. The machine is unlimited and will continue to be unlimited. Its ability to identify unique permutations is just endless, exponential. So is it more creative than us? Yes, already, in my opinion.
But one other thought here in thinking about this relationship, right, between art and science. And I go back to Bach, right? I'm a musician, so I always joke that if you listen to a lot of Bach music, right, like I say, it's an algorithm that turns into a poem if you play it right. So the art and the science are embedded. Like Bach is very mathematical. If you read it at its what you see on the page, it's math. It's point, counterpoint, voice 1, voice 2, voice 3, voice 4, right? It's equations. But if you leave it that way, when I've heard people who record Bach and they can't get above the mathematical level, it sounds wooden. It's right. Every note is perfect, but there's something missing. Then you hear, I think about Angela Hewitt, who plays it, and she rises above the algorithm and transforms it. And I think maybe that's another way of seeing, maybe that the humanities person in me is listening to you saying, what I hear you saying is that the future is Bach. It's the algorithmic thing, but the great designers will see the art in the math, right? The way Hewitt sees the art of the music in the music. And that is a different world.
I think so. And I think that this world is, for one, primarily driven by machine and capabilities that machine doesn't even have at this moment, but is being built. So they are kind of maturing, and they are maturing as an intersection of multiple technologies and multiple computational capabilities, all coming together to create this perfect storm that we're already in it in some ways, or have entered into. And then the future is with people who understand how to start from there. It's a new starting point. It's very similar in some lame ways to the people that could Google at the beginning, right? I'm of a generation that I remember clearly the admin of a CEO that I just met, say an hour earlier, calling me to tell me that he sent me an email. Okay, because I've experienced something like this in my lifetime, if you can imagine that, right? And today, look at us. I mean, this couldn't be more funny than to remember something like this because of how life has changed. But for that person who at that time was in his 50s, this was a major accomplishment to send an email. And some people started from there, right? And kind of took the world from there and built Amazon. So they didn't just stop at sending emails and calling us to tell us. So there's a question of, who's taking this moment and seizing it. And, to me, the world, if I'd like to think on things that are complicated. I'm trying to reduce them so my little brain can handle them, right? I like to think that everything in the world is going now from being stupid to being smart. Everything gets smarted, right? You sit on a chair, the chair doesn't do much for you. It just sits you burly, right? And usually not so comfortable. But someone will come and put a little IoT chip in it, and the chair becomes, your best companion. It will fix your posture. It'll send you a coupon to Orange Theory because you gain half a pound. It'll do things for you because somebody will unsmart it. And I think the walls will get smarter, and the chairs and the apples and the trees and everything is going to become smarter that way. And infused in that is an unbelievable entrepreneurial opportunity that opens because of the arrival of these technologies. The question of what you do with them.
Well,
Anat, you are. I know. I know the answer is always a little bit, of course. But are you concerned? Inevitable, right? But are you concerned at all with some of the ethical considerations involved in that?
Yes, and we can have 3 hours of a discussion without saying anything that will be helpful because it's very difficult to solve it, right?
Yeah.
But absolutely, I mean, we know all the problems at this point, not all the problems. We know most of the problems that are already emerging, from the deep fake to unethical treatment of constituents within society, to all the hacks that data is going to, and manipulations and black boxing of AI and all that. We know. And you know what? Talking about the new career opportunities that are arriving, that too is coming, right? We need to be able to do more of explainable AI. We need to put ethics in it. See, the problem with ethical AI, everybody knows to say that, and everybody is worrying about this. And the problem that we have is, if the three of us, which shall we consider ourselves at least somewhat intelligent, right, sit here and say, let's talk for 5 minutes on what we think of as ethical. Just give me your download, 5 minutes of what you think society should regard as the prime ethical, say, concerns, considerations, or values, so that we can embed it in machine. I don't know that we can so easily articulate that, right? Because we never needed to. And by this time, it's different. Now we are relegating the machine managing our lives, right? This is between automation and autonomy. And we're pushing towards the 4.0, right? Industry 4.0. Autonomous, everything turns autonomous. So we need to educate the machine on what's ethical.
Yeah, articulating it's one thing, but reaching a consensus is the other. And it's funny. I was going to ask you, and maybe it's a good kind of segue. You mentioned before that you don't think this stuff's ever going to be truly regulated. Is that why? You think there'll just never be a consensus?
It's multiple issues, in my opinion. One is the problem we're talking about right now, which is just reaching understanding of what is ethical is going to take us a while, and then building consensus over it's going to take us even longer. So that's the first chunk, and that's more on the conceptual end. Then you have the technical end, which is every day there are millions of algorithms being written. So what do we envision? The Bureau of Algorithm Reviewers, or like what does that physically look like? What's impossible? And if you want AI to regulate itself, then that's a joke. So that's not necessarily how we can go about it. It's not necessarily technically feasible. And then, since AI has been, shall we call it, kidnapped for, say, defense purposes by quite a number of countries around the world, and that had become the new source of strategic advantage at the national level, then I don't see this being stopped, especially if you think on who are the people who are leading. There are quite a number of countries around the world that will not stop, and then it will force everybody else to at least get to some sort of a Cold War around AI capabilities, especially in defense.
And I've said to Dan before, there's a term that technologists will have to learn called IRB, which every doctor knows what it means, right? Independent Review Board. And so this is what's coming. That's at least one small part of it. But you're right. This could be an entire show, and I only have 20 minutes, so I want to make sure we talk about Huedata. So I'm going to have to take time out and pivot a subject to your company that you created, Anat. So tell us the origin of Huedata and tell us about what the company does and your vision for it.
Okay, so that's one of these things that just happened to you, that you stumble on something and you don't really know if this is important enough to put energy against, but it pulls you, kind of reels you in. And what I stumbled on, really completely coincidentally, is this idea that color makes an unbelievable difference in our lives. I actually never paid attention to this until I was in my 30s. And through some coincidence, I learned the impact of color, which essentially impacts anywhere between, our estimates, 60 to 80+% of the buying decision. It goes to the question of what color that is. The shirt, the pen, the chair, the car. And as you begin to think about it, so much at stake. And then what comes to aid a design decision that involves, color? By the way, color is in everything, right? So when we talk about just the commercial slice, color is in all products that we design, color is in all brands that we design, color is in all environments we design. And the right color sells or does for you whatever you want, brand affinity, create some sort of a mood, direct people in a hospital environment to the 5th floor. Color does for you many things if it's done right. And if it's done wrong, it's inventory and cost and loss of opportunity and some brand disasters. So what goes into the decision of selecting the right color? There's so much at stake. And what I learned is, intuition, educated guests, preferences of the wife's CEO, and on and on and on. Really, I mean, the stories are just insane. It didn't compute for me. I could not understand that. So this is what led me into this. I thought I don't even know how to quantify the opportunity, but it's completely untapped. It is to this day. I started thinking on this. The year was 1997. We're almost celebrating 30 years of me thinking on this, and then some 20 years of doing things around this, and eventually finding the capabilities, the way to put together Huedata, which is bringing data, color data, in commercial applications. So what have we done in cars, in fashion, in brands, in pharmaceuticals, and so on and so forth? What have we done to embed the right colors or just colors in our offerings, and what works and what doesn't? I'm just going to try to figure this out and structure the space to then dish it to people in a way that they can make more informed, substantiated, and even inspired decisions as a result of the data. That's what Huedata is doing. It's been an unbelievable, undertaking. Like you have to be delusional. I'd say I'm trained as a therapist, so I say this with yeah, you have to be crazy to actually attempt this because of the magnitude of this issue, and because I came to it. What do I know about data? What do I know about AI? What do I know about selling data to people? Just nothing. But what did I know? Today I know a whole lot more, but I knew nothing. So this was just an idea, and then go chase it and try to make it happen. I think I made it happen, at least at the level that it becomes commercially viable, and this is where the stage of it right now. That's the gist of it at a summary level, the bumper sticker version.
So tell it. There was a story I've heard you tell about. I think it was either the siding company or the brand or the pills, right? So all these different case studies. Walk us through one of your favorite case studies of the before and after.
Yeah. So I'll contrast two stories for your three. The first one is we can go to the pharmaceutical space. There is a company that's doing the coding for pills for all the pharmaceutical companies. So the Pfizers of the world, Mercks of the world, all go to them and say, this is a new drug that we're putting in the market. This is the brand attributes of the drug. It's for men age 50 to 70. It's cardiovascular. The brand concepts or the brand concepts are about slow release and high efficacy. We're going to launch it in 10 geographies. What color should it be? Now, this company can put it in any color. They don't know what color should it be. The Pfizers of the world don't know what color should it be, so no one knows. So the capability is, now 80% of the drugs are done in white. But, if people take 3, 4, 5 pills a day, it becomes like, did I take this one? And then there are counterfeit problems, lots of problems. So distinguishing through color and claiming some sort of brand position, Motrin, it's orange. That connectivity is actually quite dramatic for, from a brand standpoint. So they go and they ask, what color should we do it? And these people say, we don't know. And then they call us and they ask, what color should we do it? And this is before Huedata. And we say, we don't know, but we can study it. So then you go and you study in 10 jurisdictions, and you can only imagine how much money, how long it takes, how lame of a study, even though it's the best study that's been done this day. But it's a study, it's just a small effort, right? Today, I sit on all the colors of all the pills across all the indications and all the geographies. It's just my data, and I've parsed and I arrange it and I structured it, and I can drive any analytic that you want. So what color should it be? I can tell you, and I can tell you this in 3 clicks, opposed to the $500,000 that it costs to do this research, right? that took almost a year long to accomplish. I had a company that's doing siding, and when you do siding, then you have to commit to a certain palette because everything is pre-made. So there's a question of what colors should be in the market. We went and we read pretty much all the colors of houses in the US so that we can understand what people like, what are the trends, what's emerging in what region, at least so that we can do descriptive analytics first and take a look at the colors that the company has considered and tell them, in this geography, this should be the palette you're going with. It's just kind of parse through this question so that it can be more strategic and more appropriate for their end users. And as we now look at the predictive capabilities of the data, we can begin to see the trends, the cyclicality, time series analysis so that we can understand what might come next or where are the opportunities to take things to the next level. So that's the second use case. I had a company where the design team came and said, we're considering we need to go through rebranding. We've been around, it's a defense company. We've been around for over 50 years. We'll go with two colors, but we're thinking of merging them from, say, mid-tone yellows and blues to deep yellows or dark yellows and dark blues and add gray. But it's a defense company, so the senior management team wants to know why, and they're also engineers and methodical about decision making. So we need to rationalize this. By the way, here are the brand concepts that we would want the colors to symbolize. Can you help us rationalize? And then we go and we read their competitive space, and it's clicks, 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 as opposed to let's just go and fetch all the, it's easy to do this. And we see that, the colors that they're considering can be rationalized as differentiators in the industry because no one is using this palette, and actually no one is using these color combinations across any other industry either. So they can really stand out nicely. It's just that these colors do not communicate any one of the brand attributes that they would like to communicate. So all of this gets contrasted against millions and millions of data points that we can bring to the conversation to make this analysis feasible, intelligent, on the analytical side, and then be able to derive conclusions that can be rationalized and explained to other people who design is not their business, but they still need to, collectively make a decision and a commitment to something. So these are kind of a quick review of 3 use cases that Huedata can support now easily and intelligently.
Anat, this is amazing to me. I'm a marketer by trade, and I think about how much money and effort over the years has gone into copy, messaging, graphics, but I don't know about color. And thinking about some of those industries, I did some work in supply chain for a while in fashion industry, and I'm curious as to what the adoption. I mean, it's great that you have the data, right? Because my experience in the fashion industry in particular was, you mentioned intuition before. And this is we were doing supply chain. So there was actual data there to say, hey, you should be ordering more or less, or, doing things differently with your inventory or your placement or whatever. And this was pretty data based. And it was very difficult to get these fashion companies who were relying on intuition for so many years to even accept the data. Are you seeing that start to change, that they're looking at the data, listening to the data?
You're exactly right. And very often I'm so happy that I'm actually coming from the change management space, because it's not just a question.
That's what it is, right?
Yes, it's a change management exercise to take people who are used to make decisions one way and to educate them about the value of making decisions a different way. And in very many ways, their personal power that's derived from their expertise and their position is being now put into question, and that's actually what's firing back. It's not anything rational. So the change management exercise is enormous. My preference on this is in several places. I'm not convincing anyone. I actually, I don't know how to say it in a polite way, so I'll just say it the way I think about it. I don't care. Right. I just don't care. What I do is I go to design schools. I educate from the bottom up the next generation that's open to think about things differently. And they're coming to become decision makers, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I'm embedding my capability being Intel Inside in all sorts of new technologies that will help you make decisions more seamlessly without needing to attend to the change management challenge in that. And if you take your time to make decisions, that's perfect for me because I take my time to build my data and to build the algorithmic reasoning behind it. And when you will be ready, I will be ready as well. So one of the easier ways to manage change is not to fight the people that don't want to change, but to work with the people who do. And there's enough of them that kind of get to prototype things, to optimize things, and de-risk the decision of relying on data all the way to a point where people can join into this. So I'm not going to fight you in that sense. I don't care that there will be people that want to stay in their old self. I respect that. Okay, and I'm just.
So there's one other thing here, because I think in people who don't work with color every day they really don't understand it. And so when you think about does it matter what color SAP's logo is, right? I think that it does in some way. And I think there are companies who know really well that color is more than color, right? Color is identity, color is emotion, color is feeling. Goes back to my book on persuasion. A lot of colors will generate emotion, and emotion is it's a powerfully persuasive thing. And if you find a color that persuades people, that tells them a story, then that becomes part of what you are, right? And I think that thinking of when I see Huedata, I see more than just what's the right color for this. It is that. But it's so much more of that. It is, what are you? And I tell sort of time about Ferrari, right? As a company, we know Ferrari red, but what people don't know is there are two colors you cannot change Ferrari. This is because Ferraris are not for people who can't afford whatever they want. But they'll tell you one thing: you can touch anything you want. You can't touch these two colors. Ask you to guess what the colors are. You know which one is one, because you say red. But what's the other color you can't change?
I don't know. I want to say yellow, but I'm not sure.
Right. It is yellow, right? Yellow. It's the other color you can't change. So you say to yourself, in a company whose job is to please very wealthy people, they other line say, no, you cannot touch this hue, right? It is off limits. And they understand the power of that. What does they say to you? That these two colors are special. And I think that's the other thing that Huedata has with it, right, is to unlock that way of thinking and to bring it to worlds that have never thought that way before. And that's why I enjoy spending time on the website, just looking around and asking, there's a thing that you have, you can say, put in a car. What colors did a car come in? Because I'm a car guy, right? What colors did it come in? 1975. That's what I spent the most time on, and I was just looking at, 9/11s. What 9/11s in 1985? These were the six divided, and I know and watch the evolution. Which colors are always there? Because some colors are always there.
That's right.
Always silver, right? There's always guards red, and then these other colors that kind of come and go. And for somebody to say, what does it mean that this color was here, and how it reverberates? Audi did a kind of cloud gray a few years ago, and all of a sudden everybody has cloud gray. BMW did a thing called, it was like named named after one of the Arab racetracks, that kind of sky blue. All of a sudden, it's everywhere. So it changes an entire industry because somebody is magical.
You get leadership points out of this. You're able to differentiate. You're able to build brand affinity. I mean, if I ask you Tiffany, if I ask you UPS, if I tell me Starbucks, and FedEx, and the brand equity that's in the color is enormous. It's a kind of T-Mobile type color, right? Claim your color in color space. And that becomes the first differentiator. And if that evokes the right emotions, the right brand concepts, then the merrier, right? So you can differentiate, you can build brand affinity, you can bring connectivity to the way people relate to their products. You can bring sales as a result. You can do wayfinding with color. Color does a lot for you. You have to become savvy, knowledgeable, and for one, interested in unlocking the value. Okay, you need to understand that, and you can sometimes just selling more comes from just changing the color of something, not changing any other element, and you have a whole new sales prospects for products. So it's enormous. The value is just enormous. I feel with Huedata that I'm just scraping. I might have gone through the first 2% percents of the value that's there. And on a good day, I think that I might have dealt with the first 2%. It's enormous what can get unlocked Because think about, say, take finance and think about finance in 1937. How much data was there? Nada. Think about finance 2024.
Yeah.
What industry had become the financial industry, because it's all data driven. What vehicles, what offerings, what impact. It's been codified so that you can unlock it, you can use it, you can leverage it. That's what I'm bringing to the color field, I feel, and that's my overarching vision, is to unlock the power of color. Exactly, this is my terminology. Exactly.
Well, that's a great place to pause for now. Anat.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say, well, you got to pause, but Anat, I'd love to try to talk you into coming back and talking about change management, because I'm a big believer that that's the biggest obstacle from the corporate digital leadership standpoint right now. So, but great to have you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Anat, wonderful to have you. See you soon.
Carlos, great conversation, and it's really, we didn't get to it in this conversation, but I'm very enthused. You know my feeling about the last maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years prior to the OpenAI thing, and the disconnect between the corporate world and the academic world, the people that were graduating. Seeing someone like that, in NYU is just makes me feel much more optimistic about the next 10 years.
Well, when I first met Anat, we met and we talked about the academic side of things, but my sense was she's always a person who's sort of thinking and seeing more than a lot of other people, right? And it's a pleasure to spend time with her. And when we met, we talked about Huedata. I think we talked about Huedata the first time, it was years ago, and the vision. I just thought it was a remarkable question she's asking, right? And it's always great to see the progress. And I think it's a revolutionary thing that she's inventing. I don't use that word lightly. So great to have her on the show. Great to talk to you again, Dan. I know we're out of time, so I will see you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We're back Wednesday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. Go to irpaai.com to join our free membership or schedule a complimentary coaching or industry briefing. Have a great week, everybody. Take care, Carlos.
Take care, Dan. See you next week.